Hello, boys and girls. How are you doing? This is Dusty from Agozar. Nice to see you all here. Well, all of you in the chat, at least. We started on time, so we should celebrate for that. If you're in the audience, let me hear you say something. I didn't know what to say. I was going to say, let me hear you say booyah, but then that would have sounded exactly like Albertoris. Rest in peace, brother. So today is a special day. It's a special day because it's under the scope. And you know how we do under the scope, right? We get a special a special guest DJ, and we put them under the scope. In fact, dancers are welcome, artists are welcome all around. If you want to go under the scope, then shoot us an email from Agosar or a message from Agosar, and let's get you on the show. But without further ado, let's give a big warm welcome out to our special guest here this evening. For us this evening in Sweden, at least. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise on Abuya. Let's do it for Frankie Flores. What's up, Efrain?
Greetings, everybody. Greetings, Dusty. It's I tell a lot of folks that I'm going to label you, and it's going to stick with you. You're going to be the Graham Norton of salsa, and I hope that sticks with you for the rest of your life. But happy to be on board. Happy to share a lot of stories and connect with a lot of folks that I haven't seen in quite some time, and folks that I'm still hanging out with now to this day.
Awesome, man! It's so cool to catch up with you. What time is it where you're at, Efrain? Can you give us
Well, I don't know, man. It seems like, being in this quarantine, it's like every day and every hour just seems the same. So midnight, 4 o'clock. But it's right now in Cleveland, Ohio, it's exactly 4:02 p.m.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to the show again, man. We got everyone in the chat just joining us, so we'll give them a couple of minutes before we get into the questions. What's up, Coco? What's going on? The Agozar team, how's it going, Jane? Nice to see you. Who else we have here? We got we got Stream, yeah, we got Lati, we got a lot of people on here. We got people joining also on YouTube. So if you want to check out the broadcast and don't want to do it via Facebook, please check out the second link. It's via YouTube if you're on the roll. But let me see. We're gonna try and get rid of this comment from Jane, so she's not stuck there, and get to know a little bit about you, Efrain Frankie Flores. So you go by Frankie, right? That's what people call you.
Yes. My real name is Efrain, which a lot of folks that when they say they say, hey, Efrain. But for the non-Latino folks, it gets hacked. It gets E-Train, Efrain, Efrain, Nielsen, Efrain, all that. So when you talk about
have you heard that one before? Afranibian.
I've heard that one. Honestly, but coming by when having the so-called DJ names, people give me a lot of different names. Like DJ Calvel or whatever, stuff like that. And it's like, no, I'm gonna go by simple name, and with all due respect, one of the heroes, my mentor, was this DJ named Frankie Knuckles, for all those house people out there.
Yeah.
And big influence in my life.
Cheers to Frankie. You got a glass with you, bro?
Absolutely, my man.
There you go. Cheers, man. Always. Cheers to Frankie.
And if you ever look up Frankie Knuckles, he was a pioneer of house music. And the sound that he had was something that I think, if anything, kind of influenced everything that I do up to this day. So everyone knows him by Frankie Knuckles, and I said, I kind of like want to have Frankie Flores as my DJ name, and it's stuck. And ever since then, it's what I've always used. So
cool, man. So you mentioned house, and if you know Frankie Knuckles, you must have been knowing a bit of house. Were you kind of in that world before? Can actually? It's our first question, so it's like let's pull the question up so it looks nice to watch, and it's called bait. One of the guys in the team, one of the girls in the team, say put up some questions at banners because that's bait. People want to know what you're saying, so they get annoyed if I don't put up the bait. But I guess coming from house, bro. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a bit how you got into salsa. Would you mind?
Sure. Well, like I said, I'm old, so and I won't reveal my age. But for those that know, I'm a product of the '80s. So back then, music was really big sound at the time, as well as freestyle and so forth. So we talk about collecting. My first collecting foray was collecting house music, freestyle, Latin freestyle, and what have you. And with that, between Chicago and New York, big house music culture. I would listen to folks like Julian Jumpin' Perez, Bad Boy Bill, and that was kind of like my first intro into DJing. At the time, a lot of equipment, Pioneer, Realistic, and so forth was the equipment to use, and I got into music at the time, clubs and everything.
So you were beat mixing. You were beat mixing and doing all that, like the classic.
Yeah.
You have skills as well with beat mixing.
Well, I mean, if anything, if you really were into it, the skills came along with it. So, which means that if you loved it and you're really into it, the skills just happened to come along. And almost everybody I knew that was in house music that just truly loved it, that were dancers, whatever, they just knew how to do it.
Yeah.
So it just came with the territory.
Okay, so for those who don't know what house music is, it's boonch, 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 boonch. It's the four to the floor, right? So it's not music that you can stop and then play the next track, I guess you're saying.
Well, and again, if you want to get into the technicality, my main thing was house music when it was just being pioneered.
I see.
And of course, house music sort of kind of transcended to acid house, techno, a lot of that stuff. And people kind of associate house with raves. And again, if you read up some of the history on it, house music just started off and it just sort of, diversed into different types of genres of house music and techno and so forth. What I loved about house music at the time, like when Frankie Knuckles and a lot of these other guys that were out there, was that they were using a lot of old disco. And if you really talk about music, and if someone asked me, you must really love salsa. Salsa is your big love. It's like, to be honest with you, disco music is my main love, as well as classical. So when you get into disco, a lot of the house music was sort of a derivative of a lot of the old disco stuff. And like I said, Frankie and a lot of these guys would just sort of take that. Hence the reason a lot of these music that was being played was stuff they were saying like, yeah, my mom went to the house. And there's always been kind of like discussions as to where the word house came from. But that sort of got me started into like the hearing of music, which transcends into salsa music, the way I hear salsa music now. So fast forward through the 90s, which wasn't really hot for salsa at the time. There was a lot of commercial artists out there that had some really good stuff on there, but it was sort of like a stagnant period of salsa. You got from like salsa in from the 40s, 50s, 60s into the 70s when it got really hot, to the 80s, with the salsa longa, romantica, to the 90s, it just sort of plateaued. And you almost have to kind of give it to like the congresses that have started popping up in the late 90s has sort of kind of given rise to salsa to what you see now. So, there's a lot of credit to that. But that's kind of like when I got into salsa, is when the congresses started coming around there. Around 2002 is probably when I started getting the taste of it. And then there was, a lot of movements that were going around here, a lot of socials and events, Edie the Salsa Freak, Rogelio, and
wow, man, Rogelio Martinez.
Yeah, wow. I'm guilty of owning the VHS tapes of his, and Josie Neglia. Yeah, it's that's kind of like where I.
Yes, man. Now you're giving away your age a bit, but Josie and Edie and Rogelio, man, props to those guys, right? Because I think we all, not all, but those that was that period of these VHSs where everyone was bootlegging VHS tapes and trying to get them onto CD. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, Super Mario, all those guys. They were pumping out those VHS tapes, and that's kind of like when I would say I've really got into it. But then into the music, I remember going to a few events, and I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. It's a very predominantly Puerto Rican community. So I was mostly exposed to Hector Lavoe, Jerry Rivera, Mulenza, Gran Como, so forth. So I was very limited in what I was exposed to.
Just pause for a second, Efrain. Are you from Cleveland, Ohio, or what's your background? Are you? I know what your background is, but could you share that with the audience?
I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, so I'm a Midwestern cat. But my mom is Peruvian, my dad's Mexican, so I was kind of brought up best of both worlds and so forth.
Awesome.
But being in those different cultures and being in a Puerto Rican culture, I sort of kind of adopt myself as somewhat Puerto Rican because, again, almost everybody that I knew of Latin-wise and I hung out with were mostly Puerto Rican. Again, all shout outs to all my Cleveland cats out there and so forth that are listening.
What's up, Cleveland Cats? So you call them Cleveland Cats? Is that the name? I'm so like ignorant here, man.
No, it's it's if anything, I hated speaking and saying the word dude and so forth like everybody else. So I sort of wanted to have a different lingo set. So for some reason I started using cats, and
Okay,
everybody I
okay.
referred to that were my friends, and I'm a cat person. Again,
Yeah.
I guilty as charged here.
Okay.
So I refer to them. So if I use it profusely, I apologize.
No worries. What about the Cleavers? Is Cleavers from Cleveland?
Excuse me?
Cleavers?
No,
Cleveland?
Cleveland. No, no. Did I
What's the
sound? Did I?
basketball team called? I remember.
Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland Cavaliers.
Cavaliers. Thank you. My
Yes,
bad. My
yes.
bad. All right.
Oh
Cool.
no, it's okay.
All right. So
So fast forwarding into the early 2000s is kind of like when I got into it. But I'll have to say there was a moment that I have to say when the DJ Frankie Flores really came to be, and that was when I was DJing a club here in Cleveland one night. And there was a young gentleman from New York that was kind of staying with me. He was a dancer. And he was staying in my house for quite some time because he was teaching a lot of workshops here. And I was DJing this club in Cleveland one time. And what happened was I was DJing, and all of a sudden, my friend come up to me and says, "Yo, you need to start playing this like all the time." And it didn't hit me at the time of like, doing it. And I think the reason why I was asked to play one time, because I was playing at a couple of little parties and I was invited to play. So anyways, that young gentleman, who I kind of give a lot of credit to really pushing me into DJing, is Adolfo Indecochea, which I'm sure everybody
wow.
knows. So yes,
Really? Okay.
yes, a long time ago, he used to stay with me in Cleveland, and he was kind of the one that really pushed me. He was also the young gentleman to introduce me to La Conga. So once I was doing my thing, I met La Conga, and then you could say, that's kind of like when it all started. So
For those of you who
I,
don't know in the audience, so La Conga is Antonio La Conga, right? Very famous DJ in New York. So yeah, I just wanted to give a backstory on La Conga, bro. Sorry, play.
yes, no, big influence on not only to a new array of music and so forth, but really sort of a push into doing my sound, because he's sort of the kind of the guy that has said, develop your own sound. That was like, develop your own sound, make yourself different from everybody else, do your own thing, and one of the things that I kind of tell a lot of DJs is to put the horse blinds on, do your own thing, and not to be distracted by anybody else. Because people get motivated by outside influences, and if you can simply focus on what you do, I can guarantee you'll get there.
Okay, cool, man. So you could see yourself a collector or a DJ, man. I mean, look at those records behind you. For those of you watching, it's not a wallpaper, right? They are real. Can you just go and just grab one just to just show it, bro? I mean, are you able to do that?
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I could.
I have a tendency of making my guests move. For those of you who don't know. Nice, cool, man. So back to that. Are you collector or a DJ? I mean,
I've had this discussion before many times, and the word collector is kind of a weird term, because someone will say like, yeah, I know who owns that record. I don't really think that we can ever own a record, and the reason why I say that is because sooner or later we're all gonna go. I know it sounds morbid, but we're very, very limited in this lifetime here. So I like to consider the collectors as the gatekeepers for the time being, or renters.
right.
So I don't really like to say collect, because at some point the records that I own will move on, meaning that at some point someone had loved these records at one time of their life. And again, these are records are from the 60s, 70s, maybe even before that. And so when I'm gone, if my kids don't take them, it'll belong to somebody else, and that person's gonna love it. There was time where I think I DJ'd a social one time.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was DJing, my eBay said sold. I had sold a record on eBay, and it was going to someone in Italy. So after I played that song, at the social, I said, "Hey guys, you know what? This song that you've all enjoyed dancing to, it's going to go to Italy tomorrow, and it's going to be played. Who knows at a Congress, social, or maybe just in his house, and it'll be loved by someone else. And that gentleman or gentlewoman will have owned it, and it'll move on. So
What did the
records will
audience
move.
say? I can just see the salsa dancers. I'm just thinking if I did that, and I could just see them just going, "Wow, what a nerd." What's the next?
I'm sure. I'm
But
sure.
but no, but and you didn't scratch the record. I hope as well. The last play, right? Cool, man. But that's amazing. So you just pretty much said goodbye to the record in the
Well,
audience. What do they do? How do they
well,
react?
they all clapped, and I had a few people tell me, it's like, well, that's incredible. I never really thought about looking at vinyl that way. But vinyl is something that's just tangible. I mean, you could hold it. Back when it was hot, kids would just take it to their rooms, read the liner notes, listen to it, and there was moments. People will recollect on that, and these things will pass on. It's kind of hard to say the same thing with an MP3. Again, with all due respects to digital DJs out there, but it's just not the same. I mean, there's sort of a romanticism to vinyl records that
Cool, man.
it's really will transcend us. I mean, when you and I are long gone, these records will still be sticking around. As bad as plastics are for the world,
Yeah.
I think these plastics are good.
Yeah, fair enough. We're going to come to the playing your first track. So you bought 3 tracks with us this evening, and I really like to try and get to all 3 tracks. For those of you who are joining us, this is Efrain with us, Frankie Flores from Cleveland. Welcome to Under the Scope. Yeah, cheers. Let's do a cheers. Goodness me, white wine in Swedish summer weather just goes down really nicely. Efrain, we'll answer a bunch of questions. In fact, the next question I had on here was, hello. Okay, we're just waiting for Efrain to perhaps get his camera back. But in the meanwhile, you're stuck with me, I guess, to entertain you, and I improvise. So I will tell you all the dad jokes I know. For those of you in the audience, let's give you a shout out before I bore you with my dad jokes. Efrain, we lost your camera, brother. So when you get your camera back, we'll throw you back on and we'll play your first song. So in the audience, let's say a big shout out to Jane, Coco, Facebook user. So this is the funny thing. We're getting Facebook users saying, yes, true that, but we have no idea who you are. So if you're watching, please jump on and join the group Agozar or via YouTube and let us know what's going on there. So here we go. La Conga Antonio Esquivel, correct. Let's have a look. So it seems like Efrain's jumped off the call. What we're going to do is give him a couple of minutes to jump back on. I'm going to be a bit bold and play his first track and give him the chance to jump back on. And hopefully then he will tell you what the track was about. So let's go to Efrain's first track, which is lined up. I hope he doesn't mind me just jumping the gun here. In fact, I'm going to give him 30 more seconds. Everybody in the audience, if you're in the audience, please let me know where you are from and let us know as well what you'd like to know from Efrain, Frankie Flores. Any questions that you may have or whatnot, we'd love to get to answer them during this particular live broadcast. Yes, this is a live broadcast, and as you can tell, things happen. And stay tuned. Let's get to Efrain's first track, as I mentioned. This was La Fantastica 2001. Efrain will tell you when he jumps back on the call why it was so special to him. So here we go. Yes, I just stopped the track. I just started the track. I'm sorry, man. Are you good?
Yeah. I mean, are we back on? It just seems like everything went out. So it's just
Yeah. We're back on. We've been back
okay.
on. So I'm not sure what happened. I think the Cleveland neighbors of you are downloading stuff again. I don't know what happened. And I just jumped into your first track, 30 seconds, and I was hoping you could tell us after the track just to keep the audience kind of entertained because I ran out of dad jokes. And so actually, I stopped the track and then you were back. And now I
Okay,
don't
great.
know, but that sounds whack. And I could keep going yakety yak. I'm not going to rhyme anymore. I'm not on crack, I swear.
Uh,
All right, Efrain, we're up to your first track, and it was La Fantastica. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you chose this particular track?
well, that track in particular was probably the first, if anything, and I know that it'll probably get a little bit spiritual and wacky in that sense. But that track is, it's a band from New York, and there's a photo on there, on the cover for that matter, and it's, I think it's Samuel Leone, I think, is the director of it, which there's a couple of records to look for that are amazing. But what's interesting is about that record, and the reason why I don't think that I'll ever part with that. I think if anything, that's gonna, if I can take it to heaven with me, I would.
Right.
But there was I was looking for records up in New York, and I remember there was a friend I was going to meet, and I'll mention his name at the very end, and people are like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. And I remember it was a friend that I just sort of just popped into my life, and he just kind of came out of nowhere, just really introduced himself, said, hey, I'm so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And he just was so, one of those guys that just wouldn't leave my side. He just was always calling me, hey, how you doing? Would call me on my birthdays. Like, who calls people on the phones on their birthdays and so forth. But I remember
people.
Yeah, it's a, and it's one of the things that I tell folks that, I think I have to start doing, calling people on their birthdays, not texting them or Facebook.
No offense.
No, it's okay.
But
So,
offense.
I have to use that one. But I remember I was in New York, and he called me up and said, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm at a record shop so far. I said, hey, listen, man, it'd be good to see you. And so he took a train from Philly and met me up in New York. And it just so happens that at the spot that the cover is at, we kind of met up, and he said, hey, listen, I want you to have this. And he showed it to me, and I was like, oh my God, dude, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, it's one of the records I've been looking for. This is like 15 years ago. And he goes, no, dude, you've been a good friend. I just want you to have it, And it just was really weird because when I looked at the cover, I was looking, it's like, well, we're really close by. So it was kind of like, you know what? I was meant to have this record. Somehow it just came to me, and it had a soul of its own. And it says, I got to find this guy, and he's going to be my, my new, gatekeeper, and so forth to rock out. So, but unfortunately, this gentleman just passed away about 3 years ago, and he's a dear friend of mine, and his name is DJ Sugar Ruiz. For a lot of the Philly cats out there, they know who he is. He's been everywhere, and at some point, if anyone that's in the salsa scene in the United States, I know Sugar Ruiz was in your company, and he's introduced yourself. So that record to me was just kind of a weird thing because it was the first start of meeting people. And, you talk about exchanging records. It seems like everybody, like their only foray of getting records is, through Discogs, eBay. But I have to say, a lot of the stuff that I find it because people give them to me. Wow. Or they'll say, hey, listen, I got this record. Or they're not give it to you for free, but, they'll say, hey, I want to sell you this record. And, and it got me thinking about like stories like what Alex has said about, really getting to meet people and loving records. And records exchange, it's like, hey, I want you to have this, and you take it, and you become the gatekeeper of it, and you move on.
Right.
That's what records to me are what it's all about.
Right. So you're mentioning about Alex Gonzalez, just for the audience that's listening, right?
Correct.
On the recent interview that we did last Saturday on Salsa Cross Borders. Plug, shout out. But kind of back to you. Sorry, man. I just wanted to make sure that people recognize that.
No, not at all. It's so I mean, listening to Alex's story, it kind of was like, I get Alex. I get the crazy stories, which again, I want to stamp the Anthony Bourdain of salsa to Alex. He's that name's gonna stick. And so anybody knows who Anthony Bourdain, Alex Gonzalez is that guy. Fantastic stories.
I hope he's listening. If anyone's in the audience, please ping Alex right now and let him know where we are coining him. Efrain's coining him with titles and names.
But those stories are kind of like what's important to me in my
Sure.
life. I think records to me, it's not about rocking out the party or being popular, who has the most records.
Hmm.
It's about who you share it with, who you're around, the stories you get to hear, the adventures you get to endure, and you only have one life, so enjoy the hell out of it. Enjoy the music. Again, I find myself blessed being around so many really endearing and wonderful people that are in the music. Whether you're a musician, dancer, or just a music lover in general. I think if anything, this is the reason why I really got into it. I think if anything, I look at this and I say, yeah, I'm a hoarder of records. It's
Yeah.
probably a better title. But if anything, yeah, I like to say that I'm just a fan, and I'm just learning just like anybody else.
Cool, man.
And I will be collecting until the day I die.
I
So,
believe you. I believe you, sir. We're gonna play your track now, and just so I understand, it's this track you're talking. It's this album you're talking about, right?
yep.
So fantastic. And which track are we gonna hear today, Efrain?
On this record is Sagittarius 2001. And if you listen to it, you'll know why it's called that.
All right, let's have a listen to Sagittarius from La Fantastica 2001. Here we go. Alrighty, man. So we're back. I just muted you. My bad. Can you hear me
No,
okay,
yeah,
Efrain?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Alrighty, man. So Sagittarius by La Fantastica 2001. That's explosive, that track. Um, I mean, you told us the story about kind of why you chose that record, but for those of you in the audience, could you give us a backstory on Sagittarius as well? on that
Well,
particular
it's
tune?
like so what's really weird about that particular title is that Sagittarius, for those know, that month and that year is kind of like when I got into salsa. So again, you talk about spiritual stuff, whatever, and all this weirdness. When I saw that, I'm like, oh my god, that's kind of like when I got into salsa. It was that year, that month, and again, you talk about like, yeah, there's some weird forces going on here. I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know what to believe. So again, it just, I thought, yeah, that record is a milestone in, I guess if you want to call it the history of DJ Frankie Flores. So again,
There you
one
go.
of the reasons why I picked it.
It's funny. I thought you picked it because you're a Star Trek fan, and so did Jane. But because I guess that's the synonymous thing, right? And fun story is, I guess you are a Star Trek fan, right? Or
I am. I'm a guilty as charged.
fair enough. So good pick there, Jane. We're going to continue some more questions, and we're going to get right down to understanding a little bit more on your mentality, because you are kind of special, and for those of you who are just getting into the game and learning who all these DJs are, all these DJs are the cats, the ones that have been there for like 10, 20 years in the game, and even like Isidoro, who's like 70 years old, Isidoro Corquidi and Alex Gonzalez and all these guys. It's amazing to hear the backstories of who they are, and I'd love to share and understand a little bit about you, Frankie Flores. So I wanted to ask you yourself, what would you consider differentiates you from the out of the box salsa DJ?
Wow. And that was one of the things that I think when I got into playing was, why did I sound different? I had a different ear. And I think, if anything, I wanted to hear something different. And again, it was all due respect to the stuff that we grew up with. I knew there was an untapped world that I've never saw, and I wanted to continue exploring. So it just kind of came along with the, as part of the course, stuff I was finding. I was like, oh my God, this is just incredible stuff. And, being a house DJ, one of the things that you always wanted to do was to always engage the crowd. And there's periods where, like, if you're DJing house and all of a sudden, people ain't vibing you see it. So I always kind of told myself, like, how can I always engage the crowd, whether it's an hour, or 3 hours, 5 hours, what have you, whether at a social dance party, house party, whatever, or even a Congress. How can I engage them? So you sort of kind of have like this natural instinct. It's just like, okay, if I'm a marathon runner or a sprinter, what do you do? And there's a video that I posted on my profile page, and it's a gentleman by name of Saro. It's a video clip on exactly that, and I think it was a beatbox contest. And if you look at that, it starts off dead, it's just because he's being introduced. But at some point, and within like minutes, the people are just going insane. It's just mind blowing. And that's kind of the essence of kind of like what I would thought that would be good for my style, is like, how can I engage people and keep them like, oh, this song is a bathroom break, I'm gonna go use the bathroom. You know what I'm talking about in that sense.
Right.
But you kind of want to keep them glued, where it's like, oh my God, I gotta pee, but I can't leave the dance floor. I can't leave.
Do you ever play something that you don't want to play?
Not really. I think there's a moment for every type of song. Whether it's like the cheesy salsa, even bachata or merengue. I mean, there's just times where you have to play those. And again, it's not to belittle those types of genres and stuff like that. I think, any DJ that's rocking a house to me is my type of DJ. So I don't think there's anything except for maybe Latin trap. Maybe I'll hold off on playing that. Okay. But at any rate, no, there's nothing that I wouldn't play if I'm going to keep the party going, for that matter. Right. But
so you did a set recently, man, and like I wanted to ask you, you played twice live online. I've never. So for those of you who kind of want to hear, Efrain and myself, we've known each other for many years, probably like 2006 online, but we've never met or even chatted to the amount that we've done recently, right? And I've never really seen or heard you play, but I just know like okay, this guy is Michelin star, and I can't wait to hear him play one day, because it's gonna really impress me. I could just feel that from your energy, just from the little correspondence that we've had and tunes that we kind of shared. But I heard you playing, man. The first set on Kobe that just blew me away, and then you played the second set on Kobe for the congress that they did online. And I've told you this like so many times, and I'm gonna tell it to you live right now. It was one of the best goddamn sets I've heard in like the
Oh
whole
man,
period of my salsa career, 20 years. I've never heard a DJ kill it, man, the way you did on that live. And for those of you on the audience, we're gonna post that after this interview in the same set, so you can go and feel this guy's journey and what Frankie Flores brings. Because I was smiling the whole time and I was just buzzing away, man. And I wanted to know, like, dude, how do you prepare? How did you prepare for that gig? Could you share a little bit?
absolutely. You know, I think every gig that I've ever done, it was always about getting to know your crowd, study them, and love them. Got to respect who you're playing for. For one, you've been given the honors to play, for whatever it's 10 people or six, 700 people, and if you get to know them and you get to feel them, you feel the pulse. It's no different from feeling your own pulse. So you sort of connect in that level.
Mm.
And I kind of knew, like, when I was playing this Kobe, that you know it wasn't like if I was at a congress. Obviously, you want to play to dancers, people that have taken workshops or seasoned dancers for that matter. But I knew that this Kobe party was something a little bit different. It was a mix of different folks. Folks who were instructors, dancers, music lovers, collectors, DJs, jazz, aficionados, Latin jazz aficionados as well. And I figured, okay, I have to, come up with something that's going to engage them,
Mm-hmm.
because people get bored. They're home. So you have to kind of rely on studying that, and being prepared. I mean, it's interesting how I see a lot of DJs, they just sort of wing it and they rock the house. I mean, that's either an amazing talent or amazing luck, and whatever you want to call it, it's like I give it to them.
Luctant.
Yeah. But that's sort of like what I come in every time, whether it's a small event or a huge party.
Mm-hmm.
I want to study it. If by ever chance I ever do play that Colombian party that Alex has mentioned, and really, saying that, yeah, if you don't know what you're playing, I get the feeling that if they don't like you, they're gonna string you up and hang you, for that matter.
Yeah, that could be
But
fun, right? Not.
but it would be interesting because I've never been to a festival like that to see that. I mean, if anything, before, if I was to be ever invited to that, I would like to see that.
Yeah.
See the crowd, to see it, and it would get me a better understanding to who they are. So I mean, I tell a lot of DJs, like, know who you're playing for. And I think when I did this Kobe, I kind of figured, let me get the demographic of this and
Mm-hmm.
play it. And it seemed like a lot of people really enjoyed this set. So I was pretty happy with it. It seemed like a lot of people responded well.
You
And
played the
that's probably,
last. You played the last set, right? So you played the last set out of this whole marathon that they were doing for the Congress. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the last set, right? Or
there was 2 nights. So it was a Saturday and Sunday. So I played the closing set for Saturday.
that's it.
So,
That's it.
when you're playing the closing set, I guess you don't want to start off with starting tracks for that matter, but you kind of want to, people are already pumped. They spent the whole day, I think it was from 9 to 9.
Right.
So how do you keep those people engaged? So that was kind of like what I went after. Again, I love who I play for. I mean, even for the people that hate me because I didn't play that track, you got to love those cats because, they want to, they're out, they want to have a good time. So you have to have that respect. And if you don't, you're going to be like that guy from that movie, Good Deeds, I guess, is DJ Request. If you look him up on Google, look up DJ Request. Don't be that guy. If you're that guy, then
Look at
leave the
that.
game.
Look at that next question. I swear to God, my hands are here. Do you take requests when you're DJing?
I take well, it's hard. I mean, you're very limited as to what records you bring. So I mean, if I'm bringing a bunch of records and somebody asks me to,
Wait. Let me. I'm gonna stop you there. So you're gonna run up. All these bunch of groupies and girls are gonna come up and say, "Oh, Frankie Flores, it's my birthday. It's my friend's birthday. Can you please play the birthday song for my friend? It's this song." I mean, are you gonna break hearts, bro?
Well,
Remember, you're live now. You're live.
well, again, there was a period where I was DJ Request.
Right.
But again, with experience, it comes with like you mature.
Hmm.
But for folks that do come up to me and ask me for requests, I try to kindly oblige. So if somebody say, "Hey man, can you play some Gran Combo?" Obviously, there's going to be some Gran Combo in the set of records that I'll bring,
Hmm.
or something from Fania at level. Even Mark Anthony, I mean, you got to rock out the Mark Anthony
Why does
if you.
Mark Anthony always come up? Like, have you noticed that every time somebody talks about kind of like going commercial? I mean, I guess it's because he's commercial, but people then in the salsa will also talk about, okay, he's not a sonero, he's not this and that. But man, I have a lot of respect for all musicians, and as you do as well, I'm sure. But it's interesting how Mark Anthony always becomes that go-to, right, when it comes to the requests for the
Well,
non not for the non-nerdy kind of people, which
he's marketed very well. I
yeah.
mean, even marketed more than Gran Combo. You can ask somebody out there, can you, tell me the singers from Gran Combo, past or present, and people just don't know. They're not marketed as much as someone like Mark Anthony. And mind you, he was married to J Lo, so I mean, he's got that presence of being marketed out there publicly.
Yeah.
So that's usually the first thing that people will come up to, because that's, if you
To
go
the
to anybody
request
out there up the
for
street,
the non
he's,
not
you
for the
know,
non-nerdy kind of people. I which
well,
sorry man,
he's
are you there? Can
Mark.
you hear me? Are you
Yeah, it
there?
seems like I'm getting a feedback on here. So,
I was trying to close the window at the same time. I'm so sorry. Is that gone now? The
uh,
feedback?
no, it's gone now.
All right, cool. I'm sorry to cut you, Efrain. Shall we get into your sorry, did you want to finish before the echo kind of cut
Well,
you?
no, so I saw. Do you take requests? Of course, I take requests. But you can only do so much. If you say, "Hey, can you play something that I didn't bring?" I'll kindly reply. It's like, I'm very limited. I didn't bring them. I apologize. And I think most people will respect that. But then you get the folks that don't respect it, and they'll lash out at you. So again, it's part of the territory. You go along with it, and you learn. So.
So how do you actually DJ? So do you take records? Do you take a laptop with digital stuff? Like, how do you DJ? I just did that on the fly. How, keep going. So would you mind sharing? Like, what do you take with you, equipment wise, or is it records all the time? Just
Well,
curious.
most of the time, it's like, if it's usually local gigs here, there's a place here called Touch Supper Club, and that was always my go-to club to go to, because it's a very vinyl savvy club. They have different nights where they'll play house music, hip hop, jazz, and when I would come on board, I'd be the salsa guy to play. So typically those gigs, I'd bring a couple crates of records, for whatever 3, 4, or 5 hour gig, and so forth. And you try to bring a mix of everything, stuff that people know of, stuff that you think that people will kind of, rock to, and so forth, and really kind of like out there stuff, just to really kind of, fancy their taste. So it varies. Now that's locally. Now across borders, if I'm DJing up in Japan, I used to just bring my laptop, and yes, I would bring my laptop to play MP3s. But again, it's more convenience. And like I said, I'll quote some cats that have told me, it's like, sometimes you have to go with the technology. And right now it's the laptop era. Right now the vinyl is the hip thing right now, but that's always been my thing. I love records, but if I'm going to be doing a gig, I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I have no
Mm-hmm.
problem bringing a laptop. To
And
those types of
you
events.
mentioned Japan, Efrain, and one of our audience questions actually came in. It's like, what is your connection to Japan? Can you tell us a little bit about that, and also maybe if you can share some of their vinyl culture from some of the respected cats from Japan.
Wow. So Japan, yeah, I have a long history, but to start off, when I got into salsa, there was all Latinos, and again, it may sound racist in a sense, but we just refer to anybody who's Asian as los chinitos or chinitas. And I remember I was at a club one time, and I saw this one girl dancing. It's like, wow, it's a chinita baila bien. And she was probably one of the like top dancers in the Cleveland area, and everybody would want to dance with her. So I asked to dance and so forth, and we became friends, because we had a lot of common friends. in the scene. Well, I ended up marrying that person, and she's not Chinese. She's actually Japanese.
Okay,
So
great.
to make a long story short, since we've been dating since then, it seems like when I started salsa, I was already dating my wife. And my first trip to Japan, I think, was in 2005. Now, what's interesting about that trip is I have absolutely no idea about the Japanese culture. Didn't speak it. I think, if anything, my only education is what you learn from the Karate Kid Part Two. Did I have to fight somebody?
Yeah.
Do I have to fight for her honor, for that matter? None of that stuff here. So I was very ignorant to the culture and to what the Japanese way was.
Hmm.
So ever since I started going down there, we would also go to a lot of the salsa clubs down there, and I got to meet a lot of the instructors, dancers, and even some of the DJs. And one of the
Hmm.
first DJs that I met was a gentleman by the name of DJ Samurai, and
Right.
he was playing at a club where I just thought, oh, this cat is exactly like the mirror image of me, playing just really all the heavy stuff.
Hmm.
So we became good friends. We've done a few gigs down there, and I've gotten to meet a lot of other DJs out there as well too, in Tokyo and in Osaka. And there was another gentleman that I met there by the name of DJ Hiro, who's sort of like he's like my twin brother in a sense. A big record collector. I know there's a lot of folks out there that know who he is.
I think
And we
Hero's
became
online, bro. So we should give him a shout out. What's up, Hero?
Konnichiwa, Hiro-san, and
Konnichiwa.
and we became like really great friends. And obviously, like I said, the love of salsa is just universal in that sense. So everywhere we go, now we have two boys, so now we go a lot more. And every time I go down there, we tend to set up events, and it's always a packed house down there. I mean, the people out in Japan love this type of music. But I was going there with laptops, and I think I did an event up in Korea.
Hmm.
I think about a year ago, I believe, and Hito went as well too. And we had the lug records. So, and I think Sean from DC as well too was at that event. And lugging records on a flight is a pain.
Yeah, man. Especially
it's
from Cleveland to Japan, I guess, right?
it's not fun. I think the first time I carried records on a plane was I DJ'd the first anniversary of LVG up in New York. And La Conga had asked me to spin vinyl. So carrying planes was like the first time ever. This was like maybe 2008, maybe 2009. And it was just such a pain. But it's gotten better. There's ways now to lug records on a
Yeah.
luggage
Smuggle
on
them as
planes, stuff like
handbag,
that.
right? And just pretend they're light. Don't
It's
strain. Don't strain.
it's a challenge, but
Yeah.
it's definitely stories to tell, to say that you've DJ'd vinyl records, you
Yes.
know, you know, across the pond.
Absolutely. Listen, Efrain, I'm so sorry, but we've come to 13 minutes of the show, and we've got
Oh wow.
35 questions to go and 3 tracks to play. But this is classic. I knew this would happen. I'm not going to rush, and I want to relax and just let the audience know that this show is going to go as long as it goes, because I really want this man to get through the questions. I've got some killers that you don't know about that I really want to tackle
Man.
with you. But let's get into your second track, man. Before we get into that, I want to ask you a little bit about some juicy ones. I don't want to spoil it now, but let's put it this way. After this track, we're gonna get deep. We're gonna get real deep. Efrain, the next track that you pulled up was this track here. Would you like to share a little bit about why you chose this track with the audience?
So this track, what's interesting about this track was there was a gentleman in Cleveland, and I kind of knew him because he was a gentleman I always see at the clubs. Just really was always there. Probably in this, when I first met him, he was like in his 60s, and I would always see him. We became good friends. Big fan of what I did when I started spinning and so forth, and we would just always talk. We'd always chat, stuff like that. We were always at somewhere, bar, drinking, and so forth. So anyhow, fast forward like 5 years later, I remember getting a call, and it was I can't remember if it was his sister or something like that, to say that he had just passed away. And he said that he was always endearing for you to talk to him and talk about music and stuff like that. That he had a bunch of records that he wanted you to have. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I've gotten records, from people in Cleveland and so forth that would just kind of give them to me. They say, hey, I got them, but if you can record them or digitize them for that matter. So I went over to his house and I created records and I brought it home. And I kind of saw in front of him was like some Gran Combo records and so forth. But when I got home, I was looking through them and I saw it. And the first record was a 45 and it said Willie Colon y La Dinámica. I'm like, I've never seen this before. This is interesting. And I played it, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is just mind blowing." The second record, 45 on that, was the Hector Lavoe record with Russell Cohen in New Yorkers, and I was just like
SMC?
Really, yeah, and I was just really blown away that it was something he didn't share with me. But we always talked, and we just, and he's like, "Oh, I love that one track you play. I remember that song, blah blah blah." And he just would tell me these wonderful stories. And it was just endearing to kind of just really meet people like that just would talk about music. So, when I had this crate of records and I saw it, I was very like just crushed to know that it's like, man, I wish I would have liked to have talked to him more about these records and so forth. And there was like really some other bangers in it as well too. But those two, it was like two 45s that were in front of me. I pulled them out and I was like, oh my God, this is just the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And I never really told any about these records. I was actually kind of scared. I mean, these are like records that, and there's records that when they come in your possession, you're like really like scared. You're like, oh my God, this is like, how come in my hands? So when I first heard this, and again, it was kind of like, I don't know what it was. I thought, it's probably another Willie Colon record that maybe, at the time I was collecting a lot of his stuff, and it was stuff like Que Sera, which, when I first, I was like, oh, I've never heard this song before. It's cute. But again, a banger. But when I put this 45 on there, I put it on there. I'm like, oh my God, this can't be Willie. This can't be Hector Lavoe singing. And I come to find out it's this other gentleman. So it got me into like really learning the history of music. It's like, I gotta find out the stories of some of these tracks. And that's kind of like, it was the first time when I really started becoming a historian. Like, you know what? Of all the stuff that I thought I knew, I'm still a student. And even to this day, I'm still a student. And I tell a lot of folks that we're all going to be students until we're gone. And so I played this 45, and it was the first time that I think, how like when you get like a song and it just kind of gives you like the hairs that come up. It was the first time I've heard that, and I'm thinking, yeah. And you kind of run into records, whether you find them or you hear them online, and you just kind of get that here. This was one of those
exactly
where
what you're talking about, dude. I'm Indian, and that's why. I mean, I have a lot of hair, and I don't shave my armpit because I want to see those hair raising. Just a fun fact, so you know. I know what you're talking. The goosebump moment, right?
Well, it was one of those where the goosebump didn't just stop there. Like it felt like I had goosebumps for like 3 days. Like I couldn't stop sleeping. Like I had lucid dreams about like, am I on the start of some journey that I didn't really foresaw? And it just was kind of like a mind blowing thing. So every time I hear that song, I relive that moment. And it was kind of like, wow, I'm going to be getting into something that I didn't think I would ever get into. So anyways, for those that don't know, this is Willie Colon's, I think, first 45 on a Futura label. Like I think when Al Santiago had it. And on here, most people think that it's a young Hector Lavoe, but it's not. It's a gentleman by the name of, I think, Tony Vasquez, who was ended up being replaced Hector Lavoe later on. So anyways.
Brilliant. Let's play the track. So a big shout out to the audience. Apparently we got Alex in the house. We got Hiro in the house. I've got a lot of people in the house, but I can't see you because it just says Facebook user on my side. So shout out to everyone in the audience. We're going to get to Efrain's track and continue with the deep questions coming up next. I hope they're not that deep, but let's see. Time will tell. Time will tell. Here we go. Here's the track. Se está quemando el barrio, llamen los bomberos, no sé lo que hago yo, la casa se me quemó, la gente va comentando que Willy Colón es loco, y el problema es que ellos son locos todos. Se está quemando el barrio, llamen los bomberos, no sé lo que hago yo, la casa se me quemó. Man, what a killer track that was, bro. I gotta mute you again. I'm so sorry, bro. I have a tendency, you know, it's my parents, bro, Indians. You know, it's like, hey, be quiet. Hey, be quiet. The song
I
is playing. Be quiet.
Hey, you gotta listen to mom sometimes.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah. Every time I hear that song, it's again, it's like wow. And you kind of like are writing this journey that, and in the light of discovery and meeting people, it's like it's just amazing. It's like if you're a record collector and people that are getting into this stuff now, uh, it's just an amazing feeling to find a lot of these different sounds. We're
Mm-hmm.
all used to the kind of the same sound that we listen to the clubs, but when
Mm-hmm.
you hear stuff like this and the stuff that like that Alex was playing, or the stuff that I'll see Florian's playing, it's mind blowing to know that there's such a wide variety of sounds to really
Right.
kind of like encounter. So
By the
it
way,
truly
they're
is an
both in
amazing
the
experience.
audience too. So what's up?
No,
Gringo's in the audience. What's up, Florian, Gringo? And what's up, Alex Gonzalez as well? Nice to have you guys here with us. It's a good segue to the next question, I guess, as well, in regards to what these guys are playing. As you, as a DJ, Frankie, what gives you the greatest satisfaction when you're DJing, man?
well, what's interesting about that question is that, I mean, you can watch the people and they dance to your stuff. You don't get you don't really, in my experience, you don't see the groupies. The
Mm-hmm.
people that really like, oh my god, you're the whatever you did was amazing. I tend to find those things years later, which is, for me, my experience is it. And I think it's kind of good in my sense, because I think I what I come to the table is like, I know I've done what I think is a good job. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know the crowd, I'll play this, and I come home, and then become dad, or my normal activities in life. And I don't tend to come to find out about those things until later on. And it's kind of like at that point when I started realizing that, oh wow, I'm making an impact, or people really are reacting to the stuff that I do. And I think the satisfaction that I get, if anything, is that I've made a difference to somebody, or to a group of people. And if you're a DJ and if you can make an impact on whatever, it's someone who is a dancer or an instructor or somebody who loves music, and you've caused them happiness, I think if anything, that's probably the one purpose in my life, is that did I make a difference in this world to make somebody's life better or happy? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the satisfaction that I get, that when I play music, I think that's kind of like what I feel like I'm doing. And I tend to kind of find that delayed reaction till later on. Like even the set that I did, I think
The
that we'll
code beat
post
set that
it.
you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, I did that set, and you know, I went to put my kids to sleep, and I was sort of oblivious as to like, if anyone liked it or not. Um, except for the, some of the feedback that I would see. But I played, and I didn't really look back until like 2 days later. I'm like, wow, I guess people really did like this. And I guess if anything, that's sort of like the delayed reaction I get. Is like, I'm happy that I did that. I'm happy that I contributed. And I think we've had this conversation about like, what do you do in life? You're either a consumer or a contributor. And as a contributor, you kind of want to be able to at least produce something that's going to make someone's life a little bit easier. Even
For
long
sure.
after we're gone, if I can still contribute to somebody's happiness after I'm gone, is something that also try to aspire to as well.
Right. I mean, these musicians left a legacy, and us as ambassadors of having this opportunity to play that music out, I feel it's also leaving a legacy, right?
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
the on the contrary, then what frustrates you, Efrain?
Oh, what frustrates me? Hmm. Wow, that's
I told you I was going deep, bro. uh,
oh wow. Wow, what frustrates me? Well, I guess there's the short answers and there are the long, existential answers. But
we
I
want
think if
one
any,
word, honest answers. One word and straight to the point. I mean, I'm just kidding. However you want. However you want, bro.
um, I think if anything, the politics. The
Okay.
politics is what frustrates me. I think when in the salsa scene, we have all kinds of indifferences. There's folks that are just not too happy or they can't work with each other and so forth. So the indifferences really cause a lot of politics. It just sort of transcends and creeps into everything. If anything, that's probably the one thing that frustrates me because it limits you.
Mm.
It limits you, especially when people who have a fantastic platform,
Mm.
whether it's a Congress or if it's online
Mm.
platform,
Mm.
and when there's a lot of indifferences that come into play that creep into like really affecting what you want to do in life and making
Mm.
people's life better for that matter. I think if anything, that's probably the one thing that frustrates me the most.
So politics
um,
within the DJ world, because I mean, I'm just trying to get for the audience. Yes, audience, we also have DJ, I guess, politics. Call it, I guess that or music politics. Is that kind of what you're implying, or generally kind of general politics in salsa as a whole?
well, I mean, there's politics in every factor, whatever it's between DJs or DJs and promoters or
Mm-hmm.
DJs and studios and dancers and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as most people like to stay neutral, they still are there. And again, I think the advice that I usually tell a lot of folks that are like getting into the game, whether it's their promoter, a DJ, or what have you, is you put the horse blinds on, and you try to focus on what you can contribute. If what you truly feel that is something that's contributable in making the scene better, then fantastic, stick with it. You're going to find some bumps in the road and so forth, but I think if you stay true focused to what you really want to do, as a DJ or dancer or whatever, I think you'll get there. But that's kind of like one of the things that I feel that when I've run into politics amongst whoever it's affected my comfort in really getting to kind of sit down along the table and really share the stories and collaborate and so forth. I think it's probably one of the biggest frustrations. Now, getting into all the little other things that frustrations, and you can get something as trivial as equipment failure, for
Right.
that matter,
Right.
and so forth. But
Nice,
politics is
that was
kind
a nice duck, bro. That was a nice duck. I caught your exit off the highway. That's cool. It's all good. But look, it's all good. I don't want to gruel you. I promised I wouldn't gruel you, but let's
please.
gruel you a bit more. What are your
Oh,
thoughts?
please bring it on. Bring it on.
What are your thoughts on sharing titles? We've had this conversation behind the scenes a couple of times, and I would love to, if you don't mind sharing your thoughts on kind of sharing titles and names of tracks you play and things like that. Because I can share something with you before you answer this. Is that after your set, I had a bunch of people even reaching out to me about your tracks that you played on your set, and I was like, did you have the same? Did you have a lot of people, or do you have that in general? And how do you kind of deal with that?
I think most of my close friends don't ask me. I'll eventually tell them. If not, I'll probably even give them a copy. It's interesting that I think the people that sort of have come up to me for the people that I have no idea. I think after I did that set, I must have gotten, I don't know how many friend requests of people I never met before in my life. And and I don't really have any reservations for sharing what I played. I think if anything, I think there was a question you may have asked in one of your panels before. And I think, my answer to that is that, we don't own anything. We don't own the music. We don't own the records even that we possess. So it's usually what I kind of get a feeling for is that I'm like more than happy to share people who I kind of feel that generally want to know it. And you kind of get a feel for the DJs that are just really trying to collect a series of tracks to play.
Trackers. Thank you, Eric, DJ Eric the Saint. He's taught me that word, trackers. Is that kind of what you're implying? This kind of.
I don't even know if there's a name I would call that. But there's those people, and I get it. They love the music, but I just don't really have the energy,
right,
to share with, because they'll if they find out, fantastic, and they move on, and whatever they do project wise, whatever, if they've completed something that they've built up on and it's made their life and other people's lives happy, fantastic. But I never tend to see that, so I don't really put a lot of energy in having to do that. But what I do is there's people that will come up to me and it's like, oh my God, Efrain, you played a wonderful set, and they'll leave it at that. They've commented, they've complimented me, and there was a kind of like somebody had come and asked me that same question, and I said, there was somebody that came up to me that said, hey, I heard your Kobe party. What was the name of that track that you play? It was the fourth song, blah blah blah. And I was kind of like, there was a ego. There was like, everybody, I have an ego. It's not a huge ego, but there was like a little ego that was just kind of flipping in my head that said, this guy didn't even say that, hey, you played a wonderful set. I just didn't even reply because I just didn't think, that they didn't enjoy it or they're just trying to collect tracks. But there was somebody that came up to me that said, oh my God, Efrain, you played a fantastic set. I loved every song, this and that. And they left it at that. 2 days later, I just gave them the whole list. So it's kind of like you feel that, like who you feel is deserving of that. And again, there's no formula to it, but I think you kind of know who really enjoys it. And those are the people that I would be happily to share with. And those are the people that I sort of surround myself. The people that don't really have any ego, don't really have any agenda. And I think if anything, everybody, all the DJs that I know of, I share this stuff with, dancers, instructors. And I think, for the most part, everyone that I've run into has genuinely become like happy with what I produce, and I'm really open to it. So I have no problem sharing. But you tend to kind of find those folks that, I don't know them. They kind of get a weird vibe, and I just don't really open up to them. So again, I'm sort of closed off to that. So again, it's a very true thing.
What are your ambitions, bro? I mean, like, with your music and with your kind of salsa DJ career as a whole, do you have kind of any kind of dreams or aspirations that you'd like to share with the audience that are listening to you?
If there's anything, I would probably want my kids to grow up around this culture. I want to see them grow. I want to grow to see them to become men and to do their thing, whether they're DJ of salsa music or they're DJ of, I don't know, Britney Spears pop music.
Yeah.
If whatever they would love to get into, I want them to sort of kind of grow into the culture of music, dance, and art. And that's pretty much at this point my ambition. Again, I think I've sort of lost all aspirations to becoming the rock star DJ for that matter. Even though I think when I do play, I think most people kind of assume that I am, but that dream is not really, if anything, part of my agenda anymore. I think at the time when I was really excited, I think I really liked rocking the party for that matter. But I have 2 boys now, and I think they look up to me. Yeah. So everything that I do, I want them to sort of kind of see as a role model. So
that's my dream, bro. My dream is to watch you rocking it up on stage as a big house. The big house audiences, 100,000 people on there. Your kids with my entourage of kids. I'm not going to get into numbers, and and you rocking it, because I really would love to see that. That's my dream for you, Mr. Frankie Flores.
I appreciate that. And again, likewise with you, man. You've been in this game as well too, my man. And again, I like, at any day, I would definitely become the consumer, for you and for all the other DJs that I see out there that are also in the game. Again,
thank you, man.
This is just a wonderful, wonderful environment to be in. And if you can really find a healthy aspect of it and find your position in it, I can tell a lot of folks that it's a very rewarding experience. I'm blessed.
Cool,
and
man.
if you had asked me 20 years ago that I'd be marrying, beautiful Japanese, dancer with 2 beautiful boys and being surrounded by so many wonderful people, I would have been like, yeah, right. I would have never guessed that.
Good things come to those who deserve it, and karma is everything, man. So you are definitely getting exactly what you are living, Efrain. We're gonna go into some. I'm gonna let you off the hook now. It wasn't that bad, right? Wasn't that bad, right?
Hey, man, I've lived a life, so everything else is pretty easy at this point, man.
I've got some fast questions for you. This is always fun, and we're gonna get into your last track, bro. And then we're gonna say goodbye. But well, we're gonna say see you soon, not goodbye. I don't like to say goodbye. So we're gonna ask you a couple of fast questions, and I got this. Yes, I got it from the Agozar girls. You guys inspire me, and I'm stealing your questions, your fast questions. But I've come up with some of my own, and asked some people to just jump in and chime in with some things that they would like to just know randomly from you. So here we go. Efrain, favorite color.
Light blue.
Light blue. Interesting. Sally Ruth or Discos Fuentes? That's such a nerdy. That's such a nerdy thing.
Tamayo.
I knew you were gonna fail. So these are labels for those of you in the audience. Okay, next one. Meat or veggies?
Veggie meats.
That's Australian. Vegemite. You're pronouncing it in a weird Cleveland Cavalier accent, but I'll leave you with that. Beer or wine? Duh.
It depends. If anything, when I'm angry, I'll have beer. When I'm happy, I'll have wine.
Dude, you are not playing this game properly. That's funny. Let's see how you go with the next one. Running or biking?
That's how I stay out of politics.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm sorry, running or biking? It depends who I'm getting away from.
Okay, now I'm gonna just cut it. Choose one.
Biking.
Okay, it's gonna get choose one. Okay, I'm like it's gonna get a bit tricky for you now. Korean cuisine or Japanese cuisine?
Ooh, okay. Ah, man. At the beginning, it was Korean cuisine hardcore, but I'm learning to become a student of Japanese cuisine.
Okay, next one's gonna knock you off your chair. Peruvian cuisine or Mexican cuisine?
Oh my God, man! My mom's just gonna hate me. At this point in my life, it's Mexican cuisine.
Okay, cool. Kizomba or bachata? Choose one.
Oh my goodness.
That'll do. Next question.
I would have to say Kizomba. I'll stick with Kizomba on that one.
Interesting. I didn't see that one coming. Great. Good to know. Tito Puente or Tito Rodriguez?
Tito Rodriguez.
Okay. Okay, man. So that's the fast questions that we've got lined up. A couple of more questions, and then we're going to go, well, sorry, after your next track. But we've come to your final track. And I hope you enjoyed the fast questions.
It was easy.
Yeah, it was easy, right? Especially when you're so diplomatic the way you are. So I love that.
You had me sweating for a second.
Second round of fast questions is coming up from the audience. So after this track, no, I'm just messing with you. But let's go to your last track, and then a couple of more questions to say goodbye, or sorry, see you soon.
Sure.
But the last track that you lined up, would you like to tell us a little bit about that, Frankie?
Okay, so this last track that I've been playing, for one, was I remember Adolfo and I were driving. Right? I think we were driving back home, and I had just bought this record, and I had just recorded it, and I haven't heard anything. The reason why I got this record was because of one track on it, so I had to thing with. But I remember we were driving, and Adolfo and I were BSing and stuff like that, and this song came up, and we were both like, "What the f?" And we were totally blown away. And we must have played that song like over and over again. And I can't remember. We called, I don't know if we called La Conga or we called someone else, but we were like, dude, this song, it's insane. It was just, it like, we were like blown away. And I think even when we got back to the house, we were playing it on the vinyl record. But in the short story, Alfredo Linares is one of those guys that ever since I started listening to, I've always wanted to meet him. Just wanted to meet him. I just wanted to get to like shake his hand and just say, hey, I'm a fan, and be done with it. As which is what I normally do with almost every artist, whether it's Eddie Palmieri and stuff like that. I just want to say, hey, I'm a fan. I love your music, and I move on, because I'm sure they get that from everybody, and they don't want to kind of hearing on.
He's just a cool looking guy, right? I mean, in general. Linares?
He's got an impression, but there was an opportunity, and I went to Oaxaca, Mexico, which is a whole nother story to talk about, and we could probably do that on whatever the next project you might be talking about.
Right,
But
right.
I went to Oaxaca, Mexico for a big festival, a huge festival around there, and it just so happens that Alfredo Linares was brought down to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and flew down there, and I was in the lobby. Now, mind you, I don't think people even know what Alfredo Linares looks like now. I mean,
So that's
granted,
how it looks like, right? I
yes,
just that wasn't a ghost that just appeared. It wasn't somebody hacking our live stream. That was that was Alfredo Linares, right?
yes, and he still has the hair. I mean, it's like it's uncanny. But he,
Look at this guy, man.
yeah, he's definitely an impressionable figure. So I was at this hotel, and Javier, he's the headliner for the Saturday night, and I was in the lobby, and I don't know, just kind of hanging out there, and I saw him walking in, and there's like a bunch of people in the lobby, but nobody was giving him any time of day. They weren't like coming up to him for autographs. Like nobody was really being a groupie to him. And I looked around, and I just like, oh my God, that's Alfredo Linares. So I casually walked up to him, and I said, hey, listen, yo soy Efrain, soy un fanático de tu música, todo eso. And he was like, Efrain, un placerte, and we just kept on talking.
Mm-hmm.
And he invited me to sit down. There was a couch there, and we chatted. And
Did
we
he?
talked
I mean,
about
you said like, Efrain, like he recognized you. Did he think he was like you're one of his like lost cousins or something, bro? Just
no. I said I was a fan,
grandsons. Okay, okay.
and he was like, hey, oh yeah, Efrain, es un placerte. He wanted to just, he asked me a couple of his, where are you from?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'm half Peruvian, half Mexican. And he's, oh, what part of Peru? And I said, my mom's from Abancay. He goes, oh, yo tengo papas, relatives from that city.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we were just chatting. We must have chatted for like a half hour on his couch. And what was interesting is just that he was just like how you and I are talking. Just chatting, talking. With like I wasn't even the groupie anymore. I was just curious to get to meet him. Even though there was a small part of me that was screaming like, oh my God, I'm talking Alfredo Linares.
Yeah.
So anyways, make a whole long short, that was a Friday. Then he played Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that place was packed. There must have been like maybe 1,200 people in there, 1,500 people. It was just a packed hall. And he was up there, and at the beginning, he's announcing blah, 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 and so forth. And he was like, oh, yo quiero saludar a DJ Frankie Flores, wherever you're at. And I'm like, I pointed my hand up, and he was pointing at me. And he goes, ahí está Efrain, saludos a todos. And it seemed like, if a record were described like,
Yeah.
everybody's headed toward me. And they're like, and even some of my friends that were in there are like, what the F? But what's interesting is that he kept on doing it like every other song. He goes, esta canción es para ti, Efrain. At the time, my son was just born. I think he was like 6 months. And there was a song called Mi Hijo y Yo. And he goes, esta canción es para ti, Efrain. And I'm like, it's like, oh my God.
Wow,
and
man,
it was
you
like,
guys
it was
really
almost
connected.
everybody was like, what the F? How does Efrain know Alfredo Linares? And it was just such a really weird like vibe. But it was kind of like I've gotten to realize that these artists that we put up on a high pedestal are just like our friends. They come to play just like how I feel like I play for everybody. I think everybody's just like, yeah, I love you guys. I love playing for you guys. I'm happy. And he was just such an endearing spirit. And I think once I kind of got that feeling, I feel like that's exactly how I want to be wherever I play. Just really loving the people. And if you ever meet Alfredo Linares, he is such a wonderful spirit to get to know it. But man, that guy can dress. I can tell you, man. He had that blue suit on, and I'll tell you, I like. It's like, man, that's my role model. I'm gonna grow up to be like that guy.
Yeah, for those of you who missed it, I mean, look at this guy. I mean, he's definitely,
Yeah.
A sharp shooter. That's for sure. But cool. Yeah. So we're gonna hear the track, Efrain, and then we're gonna come back with a couple of, last questions before we say see you soon. Let's hear. Is it La Pachanga del Amor, right?
Yes. Banger of a track.
I'm glad my Indian accent didn't kick in because it happens around this time at night. It's 11:30 in Sweden. Shout out to everyone in the chat. What's going on? Let's say hi to the chat. I can actually see people now. So Leticia, what's going on? Eric, what's going on? Fernando in the house. The Geraldo brothers. Danny. Oh God, there's a lot of people here. I'm just gonna scroll and just give them 2 minutes. Julio Sabroso, what's going on? Righty. Okay, so I got this. Antonio Laconga, what's going on, bro? Volcan Mambo, Stefan, how you doing? Vincenzo, and so many more. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. This is your main man, Frankie Flores, in the house, under the scope on Agozar. This is Dusty from Agozar. Let's get to the track, La Pachanga del Amor with Alfredo Linares.
Esta pachanga es la pachanga del amor. Esta pachanga es la pachanga del amor. Escucha mi canto, un canto de amistad a los hermanos de nuestra gran nación. Esta pachanga es la pachanga del amor. Esta pachanga es la pachanga del amor. Unidos estaremos con afecto y sin rencor, recordaremos, la fuerza es la unión. Esta pachanga es la pachanga del amor. Esta pachanga es la pachanga del amor. Vaya Alfredito, el mensaje de Alfredo Linares, vaya. La pachanga del amor. La pachanga del amor. La pachanga del amor. Marca la pachanga, la pachanga, la pachanga, la pachanga. La pachanga del amor. Yo traigo para toda gran nación. La pachanga del amor. Un mensaje de corazón. La pachanga del amor. Y no te olvides a la fuerza que nos dio. La pachanga del amor. Traigo para lo que traigo para ti, mamá. La pachanga del amor. C'est l'amour. Traigo para ti afecto y cariño. Yo traigo afecto para el corazón. Afecto y cariño. Te doy. Traigo para ti sabor. Afecto y cariño. No olvides que traigo sinceridad. Hermano, oye, hermano latinoamericano. Afecto y cariño. Pachanga. Oye, la traigo yo. Que no existe el odio ni el rencor. Corazón, yo quiero que gocen ya. La pachanga del amor. Yo quiero que todos cantemos ya. La pachanga del amor. Así triunfaremos con amor. La pachanga del amor. Traigo para ti afecto y cariño. Mucho amor. Traigo para ti afecto y cariño.
Alrighty, man. So Alfredo Linares in the house with La Pachanga del Amor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of folks are gonna be playing that song repeatedly today.
For sure. It's so addictive. It reminded me of Sakalana Bailan.
hmm
Right? It's
Yep.
got the same
Yep.
kind of feel. Yeah, and I'm sure it's anyway. I'm gonna listen to that track again. I completely missed it, man. So thank you for dropping that. Efrain, a couple of last things before we say see you soon. I wanted to just ask you, and I always ask, a lot of DJs that have been in the game for a while, and collectors or hoarders or whatever you want to call yourself, bro. Because for me, you're just an ambassador, and I have a lot of respect for cats like yourself, man, and many others that are out there. So I wanted to ask you, man, do you have any tips or advice to any kind of up and coming DJs um, that are out there, or somebody getting into vinyl and things like that with salsa? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, you know, you're not going to get everything. I mean, the one record that you might find, eventually, Hannah, don't play that game. Play the game of just finding what you can and be happy with it. It's there's stuff that I thought that I like, man, I gotta find that and find it, and you spend your whole, you know, energy in doing so. And I think
Mm-hmm.
what I've come to find out is the best thing that you could possibly do is, find what you can, make it a journey. Go to different places, talk to people. Those things will end up coming back to you. It's like you mentioned before, it's karma. Just really, it's just a strange thing. And if you find that, I can tell you the level of disappointment is going to be very minimal, and you'll be content. You won't be happy, but you'll be content at the very end of the game. And depending on what you want to do, if you want to be a DJ, I can't really give you so much advice on that. But if you really love the music and you're really kind of getting into this collector's game, enjoy yourself. You're really pretty much going to just find yourself riding this wave, meeting people, talking to people, taking your time. It's been a wonderful journey for me, and I know it's going to be continuing on. And I can guarantee you, for everybody else, if you follow that philosophy, I can guarantee you that's exactly what will happen to you.
Awesome, man. That's really beautiful and sincere advice, and thank you for sharing that, Frankie. I appreciate that, man. I wanted to just see if there's anything else from the audience, but if not, I wanted to ask you one last question as well, and it's this one: have you ever let go of a record and regretted it?
No, not at all. I mean, there's again, it's like I mentioned before. We're caretakers. I've enjoyed, having there's a lot of records that I've had that I've enjoyed, and there was somebody else that said, hey, you're looking to sell it, and you kind of feel people out. And there's been times that I've given away records, to people who I just felt like, hey, it's yours, man. And they're like, are you kidding me? And I'll tell you, man, it's like, I just don't see the regret in any of that at all. I just don't. I think it's, a wonderful, wonderful reward to be able to kind of just pass on, things like that. And I tell a lot of folks, I mean, you can hold on to records, but when you're gone, you can't take it with you. But when you pass it along to somebody else, and I tell you, joy that I've seen people to say, "Oh my God, Efrain, you gave me this record like 10 years ago." It's like, I don't know, it's just a weird connection that you have with people, and and just like people that have given me stuff. So I really can't say that I would have any regret. Not even something that I would even ponder.
I have an audience question from Jane. I'm so sorry I missed that earlier. What's up to Dollar in the house too, representing? You came up earlier in our conversation, Dollar, just so you know, but we will take that off the camera. It was props. It was good things. It was positive things. It was love, and I'm sure you felt that, and that's why you're here. But Jane has a question. Please ask him if he dances.
Absolutely. I mean,
Belly dancing, right? We talked about this before.
uh, well, I mean, like when you're in a house music, again, I was a dancer in house music. So, I mean, obviously, being at the clubs, but, before I became a DJ, I obviously was a dancer. I think that's kind of like how I became a DJ, was that I wanted to kind of get more into the music and really understand how to do body movement. Again, I'm a product of Josie Neglia and Rogelio and Super Mario and all those cats. So yes, I mean,
Fun
for one,
facts.
I can't even. For one, that's another phenomenon for DJs that don't dance.
Yeah.
And there's some of you guys out there. I don't know how you do it. That's something to study.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you so many more questions, but we run out of time. It's we're going for an hour, more than an hour and a half, and it feels like 30 minutes tops for me. Um, we're going to continue chatting to you, and we're going to continue doing great things with you, and others out there that want to kind of do great things. It's as simple as that. Agozar TV, or not even TV now. I get shot for saying that. Agozar was created all about getting to understand who's behind the kind of the characteristics, and one of the under the scope at least is about that. And I hope you guys in the audience got to understand a little bit more about Frankie today. Every time I speak to this guy, I always learn something or find out something new. You got so many talents, man, and we're just kind of scratching the surface. But I really look forward to meeting you in person one day, and to doing just having a good meal, a good hangout, and hey, while we're there, might as well play some records together as well, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Hey, we'll eventually connect at some point, man. Hopefully sooner than later.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate your time. And I just want to say thank you sincerely from the Agozar team and myself for taking your time to join us today. It means a lot, man. So thank you so much, Frankie.
Thank you again. I think, like I said, the Graham Norton salsa is going to stick to you, man. That's not going to go away. Again, I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in the near future. But again, thank you for having me on. I'm happy to share whatever I can with people, how I feel about things, how I see things. And I look forward to seeing what you're doing with Agozar. I think you have a wonderful platform. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to jump on and really express themselves about, what's going on in the game and stuff like that. And I look forward to hearing a lot of the stories that people are talking about. Again, the stories that I've heard from Cesar and Alex, to me, it's mind blowing, and to me, it's like, and I said that the Anthony Bourdain salsa is going to stick to Alex now. I hope that people can look at that and associate that with them. But I look forward to seeing what you guys do, and and I'd be happy to contribute whatever way I can. And for everybody else out there, again, it's a wonderful journey. Enjoy every moment of it. Again, I fair warn people, put the horse blinds on. That's how you can avoid, the politics as much as possible. Do your own thing, focus on it. And really, it's, now that this is a platform where we can all connect around the world, the fact that I've met people from Japan and Mexico and South America because of doing this has been a wonderful experience for me. And I know it's going to be a wonderful experience for everybody and for the next generation to come. So thank you for having me on. And I would say cheers, but my glass is empty now. So
it's bad luck, right? In every culture they say cheers with it, but you know what, man? Cheers from our hearts to your heart and to your family. We wish you all a safe kind of life ahead, and I hope your message with the music and everything that you said was really taken. I'm sure it was from the audience today listening. And please share this with other people that you feel that could benefit from hearing what this incredible man has to say. And if you have anything to do with salsa and want to share your stories, reach out to us on Agozar, the group, and just hit us up in Messenger, and we'll be glad to find how we can help you to kind of get your voice heard and share whatever love you have to give. So this is us saying ciao for now. This is Dusty saying ciao. And Mr. Frankie Flores, thank you for watching. Until next time, guys. Oh, next week we have Fernando Ramirez and Timber joining us on Under the Scope. And then following week we have Wachiwado joining us on Under the Scope as well. So make sure you jump on board and get on Under the Scope. It's not just for DJs, it's also for dancers and musicians. As I said, if you love salsa, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. Take care, guys. See you next time. Bye.